The command deck of the Invincible fell silent. Admiral Stone stood at the center, his tall insect-like form towering over the other Vex officers. His compound eyes fixed on Jack, who stood in the doorway, weapon raised. "So," Stone said, his voice translated through Jack's communication device, "the human monster from the old stories comes to face me personally." Jack stepped forward, ignoring the weapons pointed at him from all sides. Blood dripped from his wounds, but he showed no sign of weakness. "Call off your attack," Jack said. "Order your fleet to leave this system." Stone's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "You board my flagship alone, bleeding and surrounded, and you think you can make demands?" Jack smiled, a gesture that made several Vex officers step back nervously. "I'm not here to fight you, Admiral. I'm here to talk." "Talk?" Stone sounded confused. "Yes, about the war between humans and Vex 300 years ago." Jack lowered his weapon slightly. "I want to know what happened." Stone studied Jack for a long moment, then made a gesture to his officers. They lowered their weapons, though they remained ready. 300 years ago, the Vex Empire was expanding across this galaxy. Stone began. "We encountered your species on a dozen worlds. Unlike the other races we had conquered, humans fought back with unexpected methods." "What methods?" Jack asked. Stone's body language showed discomfort, unpredictability, sacrifice, individual action. "Our society is built on order and unity of purpose. Every Vex knows their place, follows their programming. Humans," he seemed to struggle for words, "humans would throw away their own lives to save others, would change tactics in the middle of battle for no logical reason, would fight on even when defeat was certain." Jack nodded slowly. "And this scared you?" It did not make sense. Stone's voice rose with emotion. "Our analysis could not predict human actions. Our tactics could not counter human improvisation. For the first time in our history, we faced an enemy we could not understand." Outside the command deck windows, the battle continued. Vex ships fired on Stellian defenders, but the confusion Jack had created was still disrupting their efforts. "And now," Jack asked, "what do you think will happen if you continue this war against the Stellians, now that I'm here?" Stone's compound eyes gleamed. "You are one human, alone. Am I?" Jack stepped closer. "How do you know I'm the only one? How do you know I haven't called for others?" It was a bluff, but Jack could see it working. Stone's officers exchanged nervous glances. "The Stellians were peaceful until you forced them to fight," Jack continued. "They don't want war. They just want to live. Like humans did. Like even the Vex must, underneath all that armor and programming." Stone seemed to consider this. Before he could respond, a massive explosion rocked the ship. Alarms blared across the command deck. "What happened?" Stone demanded. A Vex officer checked the systems. "Stellian ships have engaged our rear guard. They're using our own weapons against us." Jack smiled. "That would be Tam's work. He's quite good at adapting technology." Another explosion, closer this time. The lights on the command deck flickered. "You planned this," Stone said, understanding dawning. "Your infiltration was a distraction." "Partly," Jack admitted. "But I meant what I said about talking." He looked directly at Stone. "End this now, Admiral, before more die on both sides." Stone hesitated, his insect features unreadable to human eyes. Then, slowly, he turned to his communications officer. "Signal the fleet, cease fire, and pull back to holding positions." The officer stared in shock. "Sir." "Do it," Stone ordered. As the command was relayed, the sounds of battle outside began to fade. Stone turned back to Jack. "This is not surrender," he said firmly. "This is reassessment." Jack nodded. "That's all I'm asking for." He tapped his communication device. "Gray, can you hear me?" Gray's voice came through, filled with disbelief. "Jack, you're alive? The Vex fleet is retreating." "Not retreating," Jack corrected, looking at Stone. Regrouping. I'm on the Vex flagship with Admiral Stone. We're discussing terms. 3 weeks later, Jack stood on a hill overlooking the main city of Stellus. The buildings gleamed in the light of the blue sun, repairs already underway where Vex weapons had damaged the structures. Gray walked up to join him, looking more rested than Jack had ever seen him. The Council has approved the final peace terms, Gray said. The Vex will recognize Stellian independence and establish a demilitarized zone between our systems. Jack nodded, watching Stellian ships move through the sky. And they'll stick to it. Admiral Stone has given his personal guarantee, Gray replied. It seems your talk with him made quite an impression. Jack smiled slightly. Fear and respect are different things. I think the Vex have moved from one to the other. Below them, in the central plaza where Jack had first appeared on this world, a ceremony was being prepared. The entire Stellian population would gather to celebrate their unexpected victory and newfound security. What will you do now? Gray asked quietly. It was the question Jack had been asking himself since the fighting stopped. He had been pulled across dimensions to a place where Earth was just a distant memory. There was no way to know if he could ever return home. Reed has a theory, Jack said. She thinks the device that brought me here could be modified to search for Earth, or at least for other humans in this galaxy. Gray looked surprised. You want to find your kind. Don't you think that would be best? Jack asked. One human was enough to turn the tide against the Vex. Imagine what would happen if Stellians and humans became allies. The Council would support such a mission, Gray said thoughtfully. After what you've done for us, we owe you that much and more. From the city below, music began to play as the celebration started. Thousands of Stellian voices raised in joy and relief. You've changed us, you know, Gray said, not just by saving us from the Vex. You've shown us that we can defend ourselves without losing who we are. Jack looked at his hands. In the weeks since his arrival, he had killed no one, not even Vex soldiers. He had disabled, outsmarted, and intimidated, but never taken a life. It was something he was proud of. Maybe that's why humans and Stellians should find each other, Jack said. You could use our strength, and we could use your compassion. Together they walked down toward the celebration, an unlikely pair, the four-armed, blue-skinned alien and the human warrior from across the dimensions. Behind them, in orbit around Stellus, the first joint Stellian-Vex diplomatic vessel prepared to depart, carrying news of the peace to other worlds. And beyond the known stars, somewhere in the vastness of space, perhaps Earth still existed. Jack didn't know if he would ever see his home again, but he had found a new purpose here, building bridges between species that feared each other only because they did not understand each other. As Jack reached the plaza, the Stellians cheered. Children, no longer hiding in shelters, looked at him with wonder rather than fear. Elder Wade, who had opposed his summoning, now nodded in respect. Ready for a new adventure? Reed asked, approaching with a smile. In her hands, she held plans for a ship designed for long-range exploration. Jack looked around at the world he had helped save, then up at the stars that held countless possibilities. Ready, he said. Jack stared at the food on his plate. The blue, jelly-like substance wobbled as he poked it with a three-pronged utensil. After 3 days on this alien world, he still found it hard to believe this was happening. It's safe for you to eat, said Reed, who sat across from him in the small dining area. We checked your biology against our database. The proteins should be compatible. Jack took a small bite. It tasted like bland oatmeal with a hint of something like mint. Not terrible, but not good either. Thanks, he said. Better than nothing. Reed watched him with her large eyes. Like all Stellians, she had 4 arms and blue skin that seemed to shimmer slightly in the light. Jack had learned that Stellians were mostly peaceful scientists and traders who had never faced a serious war until the Vex arrived. You are so different from us, Reed said. Your movements are faster. The way you crushed that drone yesterday with your bare hands. None of our people could do that. Jack shrugged. I'm not special on Earth, just a regular soldier. Regular? Reed's eyes widened. Our instruments show your bone density is 3 times ours. Your muscle fiber structure is amazingly efficient, and your reaction time. She shook her head in wonder. If you're regular, then humans must be extraordinary beings. Commander Gray entered the room before Jack could respond. The Stellian commander looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes. The Vex fleet has increased speed, Gray said without greeting. They will reach our outer defense perimeter tomorrow, not in 3 days as we thought. Reed's blue skin paled. So soon. We're not ready. We're never going to be ready, Jack said, pushing his plate away. Not if we keep thinking like defenders. We need to hit them first. Gray and Reed looked at him with confusion. Hit them first, Gray repeated. We don't have enough ships to attack their fleet. Jack stood up and walked to the large screen on the wall that showed the Stellian solar system. He pointed to the approaching Vex fleet. We don't need to attack their whole fleet. We just need to make them think twice. He turned to Gray. You said the Vex are afraid of humans, right? Then let's use that. The command center hummed with activity as Stellian technicians worked frantically to prepare for the coming battle. Jack stood with Gray, watching the main screen where hundreds of red dots represented the approaching Vex ships. Over the past day, Jack had learned more about the Vex. They were insect-like beings who lived to conquer. Their society was built on strict order and the belief that they were superior to all other life. And according to Stellian archives, they had a deep cultural fear of humans. 300 years ago, the Vex fought a war with humans, Gray explained. The archives don't have many details, but they say humans fought with such violence and unpredictability that the Vex suffered their only major defeat in their 1,000-year history. And then humans just disappeared, Jack asked. Gray nodded. The records suggest humans retreated to their home systems after the war. Some say they destroyed themselves in another conflict. Others believe they simply chose isolation. Either way, no human has been seen in this part of space since. Until now, Jack said quietly. Elder Wade entered the command center, moving slowly with the help of a floating chair. The old Stellian had opposed bringing Jack here, but now he approached with curiosity in his eyes. Our scout ships report that Vex fighters are preparing to launch, Wade said. Commander Gray, it is time to evacuate the remaining civilians to the deep shelters. Jack stepped forward. Before you do that, I have an idea. He looked at the assembled Stellian leaders. Let me talk to them. Talk. Wade's voice was filled with doubt. The Vex do not talk. They conquer. Trust me, Jack said. If they're so afraid of humans, let's remind them why. The small scout ship carried Jack and Gray toward the edge of the Stellian system. Jack wore a modified spacesuit the Stellians had adapted to fit his human form. It was uncomfortable, but it would keep him alive in space. This is madness, Gray said as they approached the meeting point. Admiral Stone is not known for diplomacy. We're not here for diplomacy, Jack replied. We're here to put on a show. The Vex diplomatic vessel appeared on their sensors. It was larger than the Stellian scout ship, with sharp angles and weapons clearly visible on its hull. Jack felt his heart beat faster, but kept his face calm. Remember the plan, he told Gray. No matter what happens, follow my lead. The communication screen lit up, showing the face of a Vex commander. The alien looked like a cross between a mantis and a human, with compound eyes and mandibles that clicked as it spoke. The translation system converted its clicks and hisses into words. Stellian vessel, you requested this meeting. State your purpose. Gray began to speak, but Jack stepped forward into view of the camera. The effect was immediate. The Vex commander's mandibles clicked rapidly, and its compound eyes seemed to widen. What is that creature with you? The Vex demanded. Jack smiled, showing his teeth in what he knew would be an aggressive display to the insect-like aliens. I am human, he said simply. And I've come to give you a message for Admiral Stone. The Vex commander actually took a step back from its screen. Impossible. Humans are gone from this sector. We're back, Jack said. And we remember what your people did 300 years ago. This was a bluff, but Jack had learned enough about the old war to make it sound convincing. The Vex Empire will not be threatened, began the commander, but Jack cut him off. This isn't a threat. It's a promise. Jack leaned closer to the screen. Leave the Stellian system now, or face what your ancestors faced. You know what humans did to your fleets at the Battle of Proxima. You know what happened to your colony worlds when they refused to surrender. Jack had no idea what he was talking about, but from the way the Vex commander's body language changed, his words had hit their mark. Admiral Stone will hear of this, the Vex said, its voice now uncertain. Good, replied Jack. Tell him a human waits for him at Stellus. Tell him I look forward to meeting him in person. The communication ended abruptly. Gray turned to Jack with amazement in his eyes. How did you know about the Battle of Proxima? That information wasn't in what we shared with you. Jack smiled grimly. I didn't. I guessed. But from that reaction, I'd say something bad happened there for the Vex. As they turned their ship back toward Stellus, Jack looked out at the stars. He still didn't understand how he had ended up here, or if he would ever see Earth again. But one thing was becoming clear. His presence alone was a weapon, and he intended to use it. Back on Stellus, Reed met them in the landing bay. Her expression was excited. The Vex fleet has slowed its approach, she announced. They've changed formation. Something has made them cautious. Jack nodded. They're scared. Now we need to give them something real to be afraid of. Show me your weapons, Commander Gray. Show me what we have to work with. Gray led Jack toward the armory, hope beginning to show on his face for the first time. You know, Gray said quietly, our people have never been warriors. We don't understand violence as you seem to. Jack looked at the alien commander. Then let me teach you. Not to be violent, but to defend yourselves. Sometimes that's the same thing. As they walked, Jack couldn't help but wonder what these Vex had experienced in the past to make them so terrified of humans, and whether he could live up to that fearsome reputation when the real fighting began. The Vex attack came at dawn. It wasn't the massive fleet invasion they had feared. Instead, a single Vex battleship broke from the main fleet and headed toward Haven, the small Stellian colony on the system's outer moon. They're testing us, Jack said, standing in the command center with Gray and the Council, sending one ship to see how we respond. Elder Wade looked at the tactical display with worried eyes. Haven has only basic defenses. There are 5,000 colonists there. Jack turned to Gray. We need to get there now. This is our chance to show them what they're dealing with. Gray nodded. I can have a fast transport ready in 20 minutes. No, Jack shook his head. We need a warship, something with teeth. Reed stepped forward. We have the Starlight. It's our best research vessel, but we modified it with weapon systems when the Vex first appeared. It's not designed for combat, but it'll do, Jack interrupted. How soon can we launch? The Starlight cut through space toward Haven. Jack stood on the bridge with Gray and a crew of 30 Stellians. None of them were soldiers. They were scientists, engineers, and researchers who had volunteered for this dangerous mission. We're picking up distress signals from Haven, said the communications officer, her four hands working quickly over the controls. The Vex have begun landing troops. Jack looked at the tactical display. The Vex battleship hung in orbit above Haven, launching smaller craft to the surface. What weapons do we have? Jack asked. Gray pointed to the display. 2 energy cannons. A magnetic field generator that can disrupt their smaller ships. Nothing that can damage their battleship. Jack smiled grimly. We're not going after the battleship. Take us in close to the moon. I want to get down to the surface. Gray looked shocked. You want to fight them on the ground. Alone? Not alone, Jack said. I need 10 volunteers who can follow orders without question. The stallions on the bridge looked at each other nervously. Finally, a young engineer named Tam stepped forward. "I will go," he said. "My family is on Haven." One by one, 9 more stallions volunteered. None had ever seen combat, but all had reasons to fight. "Good," Jack said. "Now here's what we're going to do." The Vex soldiers moved through the streets of Haven's main settlement with mechanical precision. They were tall, insect-like creatures with armored exoskeletons and multifaceted eyes. They carried energy weapons that could cut through stellian buildings like paper. The colonists had retreated to underground shelters, but the Vex were methodically finding and breaking into each one. Their orders were clear: leave no stellian alive. A squad of 6 Vex soldiers approached the largest shelter, where hundreds of colonists were hiding. The squad leader signaled to place explosives on the sealed door. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed down the street. The Vex turned, weapons raised. A single figure stood 50 meters away. It was shaped wrong. Only 2 arms instead of 4 or 6, no visible exoskeleton, and covered in some kind of flexible armor. The squad leader clicked an order to his troops. The universal translator picked it up. Unknown species. Eliminate. All 6 Vex fired at once. Energy beams cut through the air where the strange creature had been standing. But it wasn't there anymore. Jack had already ducked into an alleyway, moving with a speed that surprised the Vex. Their species relied on overwhelming firepower, not quick reflexes. From his hiding place, Jack activated his comm unit. "Now," he whispered. From the rooftops above, Tam and 3 other stallions opened fire with modified energy tools. They weren't weapons, not really, just research equipment repurposed to emit concentrated energy beams. But they were enough to distract the Vex. The insect soldiers turned their weapons upward, firing at the rooftops. In that moment of distraction, Jack struck. He had found a length of metal pipe in an abandoned workshop. Not much of a weapon, but in human hands, swung with human muscles, it was devastating against the Vex's jointed limbs. Jack smashed into the first Vex soldier from behind, shattering its knee joint. The creature fell, screeching in pain. Before the others could turn, Jack had broken a second soldier's arm and knocked a third to the ground. The remaining Vex tried to target him, but Jack moved too quickly, weaving between them, striking at vulnerable joints and sensors. He had studied their anatomy from the Stellian archives and knew exactly where to hit. In 30 seconds, all 6 Vex soldiers lay broken or disabled on the ground. Jack stood in the center of the fallen enemies, breathing hard but uninjured. He picked up one of their energy weapons and examined it. "Tam, come check this out," he called. The young Stellian engineer climbed down from his position and approached cautiously, staring with wide eyes at the defeated Vex. "How did you do that?" Tam asked. "There were 6 of them, all armed." Jack shrugged. "They rely too much on their weapons, and not enough on awareness. Plus, they're not used to something that moves as fast as a human." He handed Tam the Vex weapon. "Can you figure out how this works? We're going to need more of them." On the bridge of the Vex battleship, Admiral Stone watched the battle feeds with growing concern. The ground troops were reporting something impossible: a single creature that moved with unnatural speed, attacking and defeating multiple squads. "Magnify that image," Stone ordered, pointing to a blurry figure on one of the screens. His tactical officer complied, enhancing and stabilizing the image. The creature came into focus, bipedal with 2 arms, wearing some kind of protective clothing, but otherwise exposed. No natural armor, no extra limbs. Stone felt his mandibles click involuntarily. It couldn't be. "Sir," his second-in-command said quietly, "the ground commander believes it might be a human." The word sent a chill through the bridge. Vex did not experience fear as humans understood it, but they did know caution. And every Vex officer learned the history of their only significant defeat at the hands of the supposedly extinct human species. Impossible, Stone said, but without conviction. Humans vanished centuries ago. The reports are consistent with historical records, his second replied. Extreme speed, unusual strength, unpredictable tactics. Stone watched as the feed showed the creature, the human, organizing the Stellians into effective fighting units. Already, 3 more Vex squads have been ambushed and defeated. Recall all ground forces, Stone ordered suddenly. We must report this to the fleet commander. Sir, we've secured almost half the colony. With one more push, I said recall them. Stone's voice rose with uncharacteristic emotion. If that really is a human down there, we need a different approach. This changes everything. As the Vex troops hastily retreated to their ships, Jack stood on a rooftop watching them go. Behind him, Tam and the other Stellian volunteers gazed in amazement. They're running away, Tam said, disbelief in his voice. We won. Jack shook his head. Not yet. This was just the first round. They'll be back, and in greater numbers. He turned to face the Stellians. But now they know what they're facing. And they're scared. In the distance, the Vex battleship's engines flared as it pulled away from Haven's orbit, retreating to the safety of the main fleet. Jack watched it go, wondering what would come next in the strange war he had been pulled into. For now, though, Haven was safe, and the legend of the human warrior was spreading among both the grateful Stellians and the retreating Vex. 6 days had passed since the battle at Haven. 6 days of frantic preparation on Stellus. The main Vex fleet had stopped advancing, holding position at the edge of the system. This pause gave the Stellians precious time, and they used every minute of it. Jack stood in the newly created war room, surrounded by maps and tactical displays. Around him, Stellians worked with a focus and determination that would have seemed impossible just a week ago. The defense satellites are positioned as you suggested, Gray reported, pointing to a display showing Stellus and its surrounding space. And Tam has modified our energy shields based on what we learned from the captured Vex weapons. Jack nodded. In the days since the fight on Haven, he had pushed himself and the Stellians to their limits. He had turned scientists into soldiers, researchers into resistance fighters. It wasn't in their nature, but they were learning. What about the evacuation? Jack asked. Nearly complete, Reed answered from across the room. All children and 80% of non-essential adults have been moved to the deep caverns on the far side of the planet. Jack was about to respond when alarms began to sound throughout the complex. A young Stellian communications officer looked up from her station, her blue skin pale with fear. The Vex fleet is moving. All ships, full speed toward Stellus. Gray moved to the main screen. How many? 200 vessels. 5 times more than we expected. The officer's voice shook. They'll reach our outer defenses in 3 hours. Jack studied the tactical display. They're done waiting. Admiral Stone is coming personally to deal with us. Elder Wade, who had been quietly observing from his floating chair, spoke up. How can you know that? Because that's what I would do, Jack replied. The longer they wait, the stronger we get. Stone needs to crush us now, before the story of their retreat from Haven spreads to other systems. Jack turned to face the room full of anxious Stellians. This is it. The moment we've been preparing for. Everyone knows their assignments. Let's move. Admiral Stone stood on the command deck of the Vex flagship, the Invincible. Around him, officers moved with efficient precision, preparing for the assault on Stellus. Stone had not slept in days, his mind consumed with thoughts of the human warrior. The old stories weren't supposed to be true. Humans were meant to be extinct, or at least confined to some distant part of the galaxy. They were not supposed to appear on a peaceful world like Stellus, turning the gentle Stellians into fighters. Sir, we're approaching the outer defense perimeter, his tactical officer reported. The Stellians have positioned satellites to form a barrier. Stone clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. A futile gesture. Target and destroy them. The Vex fleet opened fire, energy beams lancing out toward the defense satellites. To Stone's surprise, the satellites didn't explode on impact. Instead, they absorbed the energy and redirected it in random patterns. "What is this?" Stone demanded. "Those aren't Stellian designs." His science officer studied the readings. They appear to be modified Stellian devices, but incorporating principles similar to our own shields. This is unexpected. Stone felt unease creep into his mind. This was the human's work. It had to be. How could one creature make such a difference in so little time? "Increase power to weapons," Stone ordered. "Break through that barrier." On Stellus, Jack watched the battle unfolding in space. The defense satellites were holding, but not for long. They were just the first layer of the plan. "Tam," Jack called to the young engineer who had fought with him on Haven. "Are the modified ships ready?" Tam nodded, his forehand still working on a control panel. 5 research vessels, converted as you specified. They can be launched remotely." "Do it," Jack ordered. "Target pattern Alpha." Tam pressed a sequence of controls. On the tactical display, 5 small ships launched from hidden bays on Stellus' surface. They accelerated toward the Vex fleet, appearing on enemy sensors as weak, desperate defenders. On the Invincible, Admiral Stone watched the approaching Stellian vessels with contempt. 5 ships, that's their counterattack. He turned to his weapons officer. "Destroy them." But as the Vex ships fired on the approaching vessels, something strange happened. The Stellian ships exploded before being hit, releasing clouds of metallic particles that spread through space. "What is this?" Stone demanded as warnings flashed across his command screens. His science officer looked up in alarm. "The particles are interfering with our sensors and communications. Ships across the fleet are reporting system failures." Stone hissed in anger. "The human. This is the human strategy." Back on Stellus, Jack watched as confusion spread through the Vex fleet. Ships lost formation, some firing on empty space, others colliding with each other as their sensors failed. "Now," Jack said to Gray, "launch the real attack." From the surface of Stellus, 20 combat-modified research vessels rose into space. They were not powerful by Vex standards, but with the enemy fleet in disarray, they didn't need to be. The Stellian ships targeted the confused Vex vessels methodically, striking engines and weapons systems with surgical precision. 5 Vex ships were disabled in the first minute alone. But the Vex were not a galactic power for nothing. Despite the confusion, Admiral Stone regained control of his forces. The Invincible pushed forward, leading a formation of 30 ships directly toward Stellus. "They're breaking through," Tam shouted, pointing to the display. Jack nodded calmly. "As expected. Now for Phase 3. He turned to Reed. "Is my ship ready?" Reed looked worried. "Yes, but Jack, this is too dangerous. You can't possibly." "It's the only way," Jack interrupted. "Get me to the launch bay." Admiral Stone felt a surge of satisfaction as his flagship broke through the Stellian defense screen. The confusion was passing, his fleet regrouping. Soon, they would reach Stellus itself, and this annoying resistance would be crushed. "Sir," his tactical officer called, "we're detecting a single small vessel approaching. 1 life form aboard." Stone focused his compound eyes on the tactical display. "Ignore it. Focus on the planet." "Sir, the life form. Our sensors indicate it's not Stellian. It's..." The officer hesitated. "Human." Stone felt his body go rigid. "Target that vessel. All weapons." But the small ship was moving too fast, weaving between larger Vex vessels, using them as shields. With growing horror, Stone realized it was heading directly for the Invincible. "It's going to hit us," someone shouted. Stone braced for an explosion, but instead, the small vessel attached itself to the hull of his flagship. "Security teams to the outer hull," Stone ordered. "The human is boarding us." Jack cut through the Invincible's hull with a tool Tam had designed based on Vex weapon technology. His modified spacesuit protected him as he pushed through into the pressurized interior of the flagship. Immediately, alarms sounded. Jack moved quickly, following the ship schematics he had memorized from Stellian archives. His goal was not to defeat the entire ship. That would be impossible. His goal was Admiral Stone. 3 Vex soldiers appeared at the end of the corridor. Jack didn't hesitate. He fired the modified weapon he carried, disabling their armor systems before they could react. Then he was on them, using his superior speed and strength to incapacitate them. More Vex came. Jack fought his way through them, taking hits that would have killed a Stellian, but only slowed him slightly. He left a trail of disabled Vex soldiers behind him as he worked his way toward the command deck. Finally, he reached his goal. The doors to the command deck were sealed, but Jack had prepared for this. He placed a device on the door, another of Tam's creations, and stepped back. The door exploded inward. Through the smoke, Jack stepped onto the command deck of the Vex flagship, face to face with Admiral Stone himself. "Hello, Admiral," Jack said, blood running from a wound on his forehead. "I think it's time we talked." The command deck of the Invincible fell silent. Admiral Stone stood at the center, his tall insect-like form towering over the other Vex officers, his compound eyes fixed on Jack, who stood in the doorway, weapon raised. "So," Stone said, his voice translated through Jack's communication device, "the human monster from the old stories comes to face me personally." Jack stepped forward, ignoring the weapons pointed at him from all sides. Blood dripped from his wounds, but he showed no sign of weakness. "Call off your attack," Jack said. "Order your fleet to leave this system." Stone's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "You board my flagship alone, bleeding and surrounded, and you think you can make demands." Jack smiled, a gesture that made several Vex officers step back nervously. "I'm not here to fight you, Admiral. I'm here to talk." "Talk?" Stone sounded confused. "Yes, about the war between humans and Vex 300 years ago." Jack lowered his weapon slightly. "I want to know what happened." Stone studied Jack for a long moment, then made a gesture to his officers. They lowered their weapons, though they remained ready. 300 years ago, the Vex Empire was expanding across this galaxy. Stone began. "We encountered your species on a dozen worlds. Unlike the other races we had conquered, humans fought back with unexpected methods." "What methods?" Jack asked. Stone's body language showed discomfort, unpredictability, sacrifice, individual action. "Our society is built on order and unity of purpose. Every Vex knows their place, follows their programming. Humans," he seemed to struggle for words, "humans would throw away their own lives to save others, would change tactics in the middle of battle for no logical reason, would fight on even when defeat was certain." Jack nodded slowly. "And this scared you?" It did not make sense. Stone's voice rose with emotion. "Our analysis could not predict human actions. Our tactics could not counter human improvisation. For the first time in our history, we faced an enemy we could not understand." Outside the command deck windows, the battle continued. Vex ships fired on Stellian defenders, but the confusion Jack had created was still disrupting their efforts. "And now," Jack asked, "what do you think will happen if you continue this war against the Stellians, now that I'm here?" Stone's compound eyes gleamed. "You are one human, alone. Am I?" Jack stepped closer. "How do you know I'm the only one? How do you know I haven't called for others?" It was a bluff, but Jack could see it working. Stone's officers exchanged nervous glances. "The Stellians were peaceful until you forced them to fight," Jack continued. "They don't want war. They just want to live. Like humans did, like even the Vex must, underneath all that armor and programming." Stone seemed to consider this. Before he could respond, a massive explosion rocked the ship. Alarms blared across the command deck. "What happened?" Stone demanded. A Vex officer checked the systems. "Stellian ships have engaged our rear guard. They're using our own weapons against us. Jack smiled. That would be Tam's work. He's quite good at adapting technology. Another explosion, closer this time. The lights on the command deck flickered. You planned this, Stone said, understanding dawning. Your infiltration was a distraction. Partly, Jack admitted. But I meant what I said about talking. He looked directly at Stone. End this now, Admiral, before more die on both sides. Stone hesitated, his insect features unreadable to human eyes. Then, slowly, he turned to his communications officer. Signal the fleet, cease fire, and pull back to holding positions. The officer stared in shock. Sir, do it, Stone ordered. As the command was relayed, the sounds of battle outside began to fade. Stone turned back to Jack. This is not surrender, he said firmly. This is reassessment. Jack nodded. That's all I'm asking for. He tapped his communication device. Gray, can you hear me? Gray's voice came through, filled with disbelief. Jack, you're alive. The Vex fleet is retreating. Not retreating, Jack corrected, looking at Stone. Regrouping. I'm on the Vex flagship with Admiral Stone. We're discussing terms. 3 weeks later, Jack stood on a hill overlooking the main city of Stellus. The buildings gleamed in the light of the blue sun, repairs already underway where Vex weapons had damaged the structures. Gray walked up to join him, looking more rested than Jack had ever seen him. The Council has approved the final peace terms, Gray said. The Vex will recognize Stellian independence and establish a demilitarized zone between our systems. Jack nodded, watching Stellian ships move through the sky. And they'll stick to it. Admiral Stone has given his personal guarantee, Gray replied. It seems your talk with him made quite an impression. Jack smiled slightly. Fear and respect are different things. I think the Vex have moved from one to the other. Below them, in the central plaza where Jack had first appeared on this world, a ceremony was being prepared. The entire Stellian population would gather to celebrate their unexpected victory and newfound security. What will you do now? Gray asked quietly. It was the question Jack had been asking himself since the fighting stopped. He had been pulled across dimensions to a place where Earth was just a distant memory. There was no way to know if he could ever return home. Reed has a theory, Jack said. She thinks the device that brought me here could be modified to search for Earth, or at least for other humans in this galaxy. Gray looked surprised. You want to find your kind. Don't you think that would be best? Jack asked. One human was enough to turn the tide against the Vex. Imagine what would happen if Stellians and humans became allies. The Council would support such a mission, Gray said thoughtfully. After what you've done for us, we owe you that much and more. From the city below, music began to play as the celebration started. Thousands of Stellian voices raised in joy and relief. You've changed us, you know, Gray said. Not just by saving us from the Vex. You've shown us that we can defend ourselves without losing who we are. Jack looked at his hands. In the weeks since his arrival, he had killed no one, not even Vex soldiers. He had disabled, outsmarted, and intimidated, but never taken a life. It was something he was proud of. Maybe that's why humans and Stellians should find each other, Jack said. You could use our strength, and we could use your compassion. Together they walked down toward the celebration, an unlikely pair, the four-armed, blue-skinned alien and the human warrior from across the dimensions. Behind them, in orbit around Stellus, the first joint Stellian-Vex diplomatic vessel prepared to depart, carrying news of the peace to other worlds. And beyond the known stars, somewhere in the vastness of space, perhaps Earth still existed. Jack didn't know if he would ever see his home again, but he had found a new purpose here, building bridges between species that feared each other only because they did not understand each other. As Jack reached the plaza, the Stellians cheered. Children, no longer hiding in shelters, looked at him with wonder rather than fear. Elder Wade, who had opposed his summoning, now nodded in respect. Ready for a new adventure? Reed asked, approaching with a smile. In her hands, she held plans for a ship designed for long-range exploration. Jack looked around at the world he had helped save, then up at the stars that held countless possibilities. Ready, he said. Jack Miller stood at the viewing port of the Galactic Council headquarters, looking out at the swirling nebula that served as a backdrop to the massive space station. 50 years had passed since humanity joined the Council, and in that time, Earth had contributed more technological innovations than many species who had been members for centuries. Yet something felt off lately. The Council members had been less forthcoming, meetings more secretive. Ambassador Miller, the Granthey delegate is requesting to postpone your meeting again, said Tom Reed, his aide and friend of 15 years. The young man's face showed the same concern Jack had been feeling for weeks. That's the third time this month, Jack replied, turning away from the view. Something isn't right, Tom. I've been on this station long enough to know when I'm being avoided. The council chamber, an enormous circular room with seats for representatives of over 200 species, had once felt like a place of possibility to Jack. Now the empty seats seemed ominous as he walked through during the station's night cycle. Security is lighter tonight, Tom observed, keeping his voice low. The Zenith guards changed their patrol pattern last week. Jack nodded. Perfect timing for what I have planned. For months, Jack had been building a network of allies who shared his suspicions. One of them was Lisa, a blue-skinned scientist from the Terran system whose species had joined the Council only 20 years after humans. The archives should be empty now, Jack said, checking his communication device. Lisa will loop the security feeds for exactly 18 minutes. Tom looked nervous but determined. Enough time to get in and out. If what your source said is true, we'll know soon enough. The two men moved through the dimly lit corridors of the station's lower levels. Jack used his ambassador's override codes to access areas that were technically permitted but rarely visited by non-archivists. The door to the secure records slid open with a soft hiss. Remember, we're looking for files from the Strategic Planning Committee meetings from the last 6 months, Jack whispered as they moved between tall data storage units. Tom nodded and began searching through one section while Jack took another. The minutes ticked by as they scanned through thousands of records. Jack, Tom's urgent whisper cut through the silence. I found something. It's encrypted, but it has Earth's designation code attached. Jack hurried over. The file was indeed heavily protected, but as an ambassador, he had higher clearance than most realized. He applied his security key, and the file began to decrypt. We have 11 minutes left, Tom reminded him. The holographic display flickered to life, projecting the contents of the file into the air before them. As Jack read, his face grew pale. This can't be right, he said, his voice barely audible. The document detailed plans for a complete quarantine of Earth and all human colonies. The Council had secretly voted to classify humans as a disruptive species that was evolving too rapidly for galactic stability. The final phase included the harvesting of Earth's resources after its population was relocated to designated habitation sectors. They're planning to contain us, then strip our world bare, Jack said, the reality sinking in. According to this, they've already begun sabotaging our colonial expansion efforts and limiting our military technology. They're planning to contain us, then strip our world bare, Jack said, the reality sinking in. According to this, they've already begun sabotaging our colonial expansion efforts and limiting our military technology. Tom's hands shook as he downloaded the files to a secure device. There's more, Jack. Look at the dates on these operations. Some of these sabotage efforts began 40 years ago. They'd never trusted us. Jack continued reading, discovering that several human space accidents previously thought to be technical failures had actually been orchestrated by Council operatives. The loss of the Mars settlement ship with 300 colonists, The mysterious explosion at the Jupiter Research Station. All deliberate actions to slow human advancement. We need to download everything and get back to Earth, Jack decided, his mind racing. We have to warn them. A soft alert from Tom's device warned them that they had only 5 minutes remaining before the security feeds would return to normal. They worked quickly, copying as many files as they could. Just as they finished, the main lights in the archive suddenly brightened. Someone was coming. Hide, Jack hissed, pulling Tom behind a large data column. The doors slid open, and 2 Zenith guards entered, their crystalline armor catching the light. Behind them walked Counselor Drex, one of the 7 High Counselors who led the Galactic Council. The system flagged an access to the restricted files. One guard reported. Someone is in here. Jack knew they couldn't escape without being seen. He touched his communication device, sending an emergency signal to Lisa. Seconds later, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Station emergency protocols activated. Announced the automated system. All personnel report to safety zones. The guards hesitated, looking to Counselor Drex for instruction. Check the archives quickly, Drex ordered. Then we must follow protocols. As the guards moved deeper into the archive, Jack and Tom slipped out behind them, using the confusion to escape into the corridor. They ran, moving with the flow of other species heading toward their designated safety areas. We need to get to Lisa's lab, Jack said between breaths. She has a ship prepared. When they arrived at the laboratory section, Lisa was waiting for them, her blue skin pale with worry. Did you find what you were looking for? Jack nodded grimly. Worse than we imagined. They've been planning our destruction from the beginning. Lisa didn't look surprised. Many younger species have faced similar treatment. My own world only escaped resource harvesting because our sun became unstable, making long-term operations impossible. She led them through her lab to a hidden docking port where a small but fast ship waited. It wasn't marked with council symbols, which meant it could slip away without immediate tracking. This will get you to the jump point, Lisa explained. From there, you can reach Earth in 3 days. Tom loaded their equipment while Jack turned to Lisa. Come with us. When the council discovers what we've taken, they'll suspect everyone. Lisa shook her head. I have others to warn. Not all council species agree with this plan. Some will stand with humans if they know the truth. Alarms continued to sound as the false emergency Lisa had triggered kept the station in confusion. It wouldn't last much longer. Thank you, Jack said, grasping her hand in the traditional human gesture of gratitude. Humans helped my people when our colonies faced starvation 5 years ago, she replied. We remember our friends. She pressed a data crystal into his hand. Take this. It contains names of potential allies among the council species. Jack and Tom boarded the ship as Lisa prepared the docking bay for their departure. If we make it back to Earth with this information, what happens next? Tom asked as they strapped in. Jack's expression hardened as he initiated the launch sequence. Then humanity shows the Galactic Council exactly why they were right to fear us. Not because we're violent, but because we don't take betrayal lightly. The small ship detached from the station and accelerated away, carrying with it the evidence of a deception 50 years in the making, and the spark that would soon ignite humanity's response to the Council's betrayal. The small ship carrying Ambassador Jack Miller and his aide Tom Reed emerged from the jump point near Earth's moon. After 3 days of tense travel, the familiar blue sphere of their home planet filled the view screen. Home, Tom said, relief evident in his voice. I wasn't sure we'd make it. Jack nodded grimly. That council patrol near the Orion jump point almost had us. They're already looking for the data we took. Earth Space Command detected their approach immediately. 6 defensive ships surrounded them before they could even establish communication. Unidentified vessel. This is Earth Defense Force. Identify yourself and state your purpose, came the stern voice over the comm. This is Ambassador Jack Miller, Diplomatic Code Alpha 7 Delta 9. I need to speak with the Earth Government Council immediately. Priority 1. There was a pause. Then, Ambassador Miller, you're 2 weeks early from your scheduled return. Please stand by for verification. After a tense minute, the defense ships adjusted their formation. Ambassador, you're cleared for landing at Washington Spaceport. An escort is being provided. Jack looked at Tom. They sense something's wrong. That's no standard greeting party down there. The landing was swift and efficient. As they descended the ramp, Jack saw General Kate Roberts waiting with a security team. Her presence confirmed his suspicions. Earth's military leadership was already concerned. Ambassador, she greeted him with a stiff nod. We received your emergency signal. The council is assembled and waiting. Thank you, General. Jack handed her the secure data device. This needs to be analyzed immediately. Within an hour, Jack and Tom sat in the Earth government headquarters, facing the 12 leaders who represented humanity's unified government. Admiral Wilson, the head of Earth's military forces, stood near a large display screen. Ambassador Miller, began President Chen, her expression grave. Please explain what was so urgent that you abandoned your post without authorization. Jack took a deep breath. Madam President, members of the Council, I discovered evidence that the Galactic Council has been planning to betray humanity since our admission 50 years ago. He gestured to Tom, who activated the files they had stolen. The room fell silent as images and documents appeared on the main screen. These files confirm that the Council classified Earth as a disruptive species decades ago. They've been sabotaging our colonial efforts, limiting our military advancement, and preparing for what they call resource reclamation of Earth itself. President Chen's face hardened as she read the translated documents. Are you certain these are authentic? Admiral Wilson stepped forward. Madam President, our intelligence division has completed initial verification. These documents match known council formats and encryption methods. And, he paused, his expression darkening. They align with several incidents we've been investigating for years. The Admiral activated his own display, showing a star map with dozens of marked locations. Each of these points represents a colonial mission failure or accident in the past 40 years. We always suspected some weren't accidents, but couldn't prove interference. Jack watched as the reality sank in with Earth's leaders. The betrayal was enormous. 50 years of false friendship, while the Council planned humanity's downfall. Dr. Gray, Earth's leading genotechnologist, spoke next. Ambassador Miller, did you find any indication of when they plan to implement the final phase of this operation? According to the documents, they're still in the preparation stage, Jack replied. But there are references to an optimal window opening within 2 Earth years. The room erupted in urgent discussions until President Chen raised her hand for silence. Admiral Wilson, what is Earth's true military capability if we face the combined Council forces? This was the question everyone feared. The Council included over 200 species, many with technologies thousands of years more advanced than Earth's. At least officially. Admiral Wilson's expression changed slightly. Madam President, with your permission, I believe it's time to activate Protocol Omega. Several council members looked confused, but President Chen nodded immediately. Authorized. Security level maximum. The room's systems hummed as advanced security protocols engaged. Even the air seemed to change as sound dampening fields activated. What is Protocol Omega? Asked Jack, looking around in confusion. Admiral Wilson's posture straightened. Ambassador, what I'm about to share has been kept secret from everyone outside this room, including our Galactic Council allies. The display changed to show military installations and ships unlike anything Jack had seen in Earth's official fleet. 50 years ago, when we joined the Council, Earth's military leadership made a decision. We would share some technologies and appear to integrate fully with galactic society, but we would always maintain separate, hidden development programs. Dr. Gray stepped forward. We reverse-engineered every piece of technology the Council shared, then pushed it further. We have research outposts in dimensional pockets undetectable to Council sensors. Manufacturing facilities inside rogue planets. Test sites in parallel probability spaces. Jack stared in disbelief. You're saying we've been deceiving the Council while they were deceiving us? Call it insurance, Admiral Wilson replied. Humanity has always understood that in the wider galaxy, we might one day stand alone. The display showed what appeared to be normal civilian ships transforming, revealing hidden weapon systems and defensive capabilities. Every colony ship we've sent out in the past 30 years has been equipped with dormant military technology, the Admiral continued. Every mining operation has secondary manufacturing capabilities. We have a fleet 3 times the size of what the Council believes exists. President Chen addressed the room. The question now is, how do we respond? Do we strike first, knowing what they planned for us? Admiral Wilson shook his head. No, Madam President. A preemptive strike would confirm their worst fears about humanity and turn neutral species against us. I propose we issue a warning. A warning? One council member scoffed. Against the entire Galactic Council. Yes, Admiral Wilson said firmly. We demonstrate our true capabilities in a way that cannot be ignored, present our evidence of their betrayal to all Council species simultaneously, and give them a choice. Leave humanity in peace or face the consequences. Jack thought about Lisa and the data crystal she had given him. There are species within the Council who might stand with us if they knew the truth. Not all approve of the plans against Earth. Tom, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. The Council believes humans are unpredictable and dangerous because we evolve quickly. Perhaps it's time to show them just how right they are. President Chen considered all she had heard, then straightened in her chair. Admiral Wilson, how quickly can we mobilize our true fleet? 72 hours to full combat readiness, Madam President. Dr. Gray, can you prepare a transmission package with evidence of the Council's betrayal that can be sent to every species simultaneously? Dr. Gray nodded. Yes, Madam President. My team can have it ready in 24 hours. President Chen looked at each person in the room. Then in 3 days, humanity will issue its response. We will show the Galactic Council that we discovered their betrayal. We are prepared for it, and we are giving them one chance to reconsider. Jack felt a strange mixture of dread and pride as he watched Earth's leaders unite in purpose. Ambassador Miller, President Chen said finally, you will deliver our message personally. It's time for the Council to learn that humans don't take betrayal lightly. And we certainly don't face it unprepared. The Grand Council chamber buzzed with confused voices. Representatives from over 200 species had been summoned for an emergency session, yet no one knew who had called it. The 7 High Counselors themselves looked perplexed as they took their seats at the elevated platform. Order. We will have order, demanded High Counselor Drex, his voice booming through the massive circular room. We are attempting to determine who activated the emergency protocols. As the chamber slowly quieted, the massive central holographic display flickered to life, showing only a simple Earth emblem. A ripple of whispers passed through the assembled representatives. What is the meaning of this? Counselor Mira of the ancient Thran species asked, her elongated fingers tapping impatiently on her control panel. Where is the human ambassador? As if answering her question, the enormous doors at the main entrance slid open. Ambassador Jack Miller walked in, flanked by 6 humans in military uniforms. Admiral Wilson led them, his face expressionless as he surveyed the chamber. Representatives of the Galactic Council, Jack began, his voice amplified throughout the room. 3 days ago, I discovered evidence of a betrayal so profound that it threatens the foundation of trust upon which this council was built. The holographic display changed, showing classified council documents and plans involving Earth. Several council members shifted uncomfortably as they recognized the files. For 50 years, humanity has participated in good faith as members of this galactic community, Jack continued. Yet for those same 50 years, certain members of this council have been planning our containment, exploitation, and eventual destruction. High Counselor Drex rose from his seat. Ambassador Miller, These accusations are serious and unfounded. Whatever documents you claim to have found are clearly forgeries designed to. They are not forgeries, interrupted Admiral Wilson, stepping forward. We have verified their authenticity, including the signatures authorizing the sabotage of human colonies that resulted in the deaths of thousands of our people. The display shifted to show scenes of colonial disasters, followed by the confidential council reports that revealed their true cause. Jack's voice hardened. We have transmitted these documents to every member species of the council, not just to your representatives here, but directly to your homeworlds and colonies. Your citizens are viewing this evidence as we speak. Chaos erupted in the chamber as representatives frantically checked their communication devices, confirming Jack's claim. The humans had somehow bypassed all security protocols to broadcast directly to hundreds of worlds simultaneously. This is an outrage, shouted one representative. A violation of Council sovereignty. High Counselor Nexus of the Elder Vitri species had remained silent until now. Unlike the others, his ancient eyes showed not anger but deep concern. How did you manage such a transmission? He asked quietly, yet his voice carried through the chamber. Our security systems should have prevented it. Admiral Wilson allowed a small smile. That brings us to the second part of our message today. The main doors opened again, and screens throughout the chamber showed the space outside the council station. A collective gasp rose as representatives saw what appeared in the viewport. A human fleet had emerged from jump points surrounding the council homeworld. Not the small defensive force the council believed Earth possessed, but hundreds of advanced warships unlike any they had previously revealed. Impossible, whispered Counselor Mira. Our intelligence indicated the humans have only 47 warships. Your intelligence was wrong, replied Jack simply. Just as you were wrong to believe we would not discover your betrayal. Just as you were wrong to think we would not prepare for it. The central display now showed technical specifications of the human fleet, advanced shielding systems, weapons based on dimensional phase technology, and artificial intelligence integration far beyond what the Council believed humans possessed. You see before you only 1/10 of Earth's true military capability, Admiral Wilson stated. We could have struck without warning, as you planned to do to us. Instead, we choose to issue a final warning. Jack stepped forward again. Humanity officially withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We demand all Council forces withdraw from human space within 7 days. Any Council vessel found within our territories after that time will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. The Elder Counselor Nexus rose slowly from his seat, his ancient form trembling slightly, not with fear, but with the weight of memory. I have lived through 17 galactic cycles, he said, his voice carrying the weight of eons. I have seen species rise and fall. I have witnessed the birth and death of civilizations, and I recognize what stands before us today. The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to the Elder. Once, 100,000 years ago, we encountered another species that evolved as quickly as humans. They, too, hid their true capabilities. They, too, prepared for betrayal. His ancient eyes fixed on Admiral Wilson. We underestimated them, as we have underestimated you. What happened to them? Asked a young representative from the back of the chamber. They destroyed themselves through their own aggression, Nexus answered. The question now is whether humans will follow the same path. Admiral Wilson met the ancient being's gaze. That is entirely up to you. Humanity does not seek war. We seek only to exist without the threat of extinction hanging over us. The display changed again, showing a star map with clear boundaries marking human territory. It was far larger than what the Council had previously recognized, including systems the humans had secretly colonized. These are our terms, Jack announced. Respect our boundaries. End all sabotage operations against human interests. Acknowledge our sovereignty. Do these things, and peace is possible. Several of the younger Council species representatives were already in heated discussions. Some were openly supportive of the human position, particularly those who had faced similar treatment from the dominant council powers. "And if we refuse these demands?" asked High Counselor Drex, his voice tight with controlled rage. In answer, one of the human ships demonstrated a previously unknown technology. It created what appeared to be a small, controlled dimensional rift beside an uninhabited moon, causing a section of the celestial body to simply vanish into another reality. The demonstration sent shockwaves through the council chamber. "That technology is forbidden," shouted a representative from the back. "By your laws, not ours," replied Admiral Wilson calmly. "We no longer recognize council authority. We are giving you a choice that we ourselves never received, the opportunity to avoid conflict." Jack looked around the chamber one last time. His eyes found Lisa among her species delegation. She gave him a nearly imperceptible nod. "You have 7 days to respond," Jack concluded. "Choose wisely." As the human delegation turned to leave, the elder counselor Nexus spoke once more. "Ambassador Miller," he called, his ancient voice resonating with something like respect. "In all our calculations about human potential, what did we miss? How did your species prepare so thoroughly for a betrayal you shouldn't have suspected?" Jack paused at the doorway. "Because throughout our history, every time humans have encountered a more advanced civilization, we've suffered. So when we reached the stars and found you, we hoped for the best, but prepared for exactly what we found." The doors closed behind the human delegation, leaving the council in stunned silence as the fleet outside maintained its perfect formation, a visible reminder that the galaxy had changed forever. For 6 days, the Galactic Council debated furiously behind closed doors. Some species argued for immediate compliance with human demands, while others insisted that giving in to such threats would set a dangerous precedent. The elder races remained unusually quiet, their ancient minds calculating possibilities that younger species could not yet comprehend. On the 7th day, as the deadline approached, the council made its decision. Admiral Wilson stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship Defiance, reviewing defense system reports when the communication officer called out. "Admiral, we're detecting multiple jump signatures at the edge of the Proxima Centauri system." Wilson's expression remained calm. "Show me." The main display activated, revealing a massive council armada emerging from jump points near Earth's closest colony. Over 300 warships from 24 species formed attack formations. "They've made their choice," Wilson said quietly. He opened a channel to Earth Command. "Madam President, the Council has launched a preemptive strike against Proxima Colony. Request permission to activate Defense Protocol Theta." President Chen's voice came through clearly. "Permission granted, Admiral. Show them exactly what they're dealing with." Wilson nodded to his communications officer. "Send the signal to all ships and colonies. Theta Protocol is now active." Throughout human space, hidden defense systems awakened. On seemingly ordinary colony worlds, massive sections of landscape slid away to reveal weapons platforms. Mining stations transformed into battle stations. Civilian ships reconfigured into their true military forms. At Proxima Centauri, the colony's governor, Mark Davis, received the alert and immediately activated their planetary defense grid, technology that the Council had no idea existed. His hands moved swiftly across the control panel. "All non-essential personnel to shelters," he ordered. "Defense grid to full power. Activate the shield network." Outside, the first wave of Council ships approached the seemingly vulnerable colony. Their sensors showed minimal defenses, exactly what they expected from Earth's second-largest but still developing colony. The Council Fleet Commander, General Kraz of the militant Voltar species, smiled with satisfaction. The humans bluffed. "This colony is practically defenseless. Begin the attack sequence. Show them the price of defiance." The first volley of energy weapons fired from 50 Council warships simultaneously, enough firepower to level the entire main settlement. But the shots never reached their targets. A shimmering energy field materialized around the colony, absorbing the attack completely. Then, from orbital positions where Council sensors had detected nothing, 30 human ships decloaked. On their colony command center, Governor Davis watched calmly. Return fire. Targeted disabling shots only. Remember the Admiral's orders. We demonstrate power, not vengeance. The human ships fired weapons unlike anything the Council had seen before. They didn't use typical energy beams or projectiles. Instead, small dimensional rifts opened directly inside the Council vessel's engine compartments and weapon systems, selectively removing key components without harming crew members. Aboard his command ship, General Kraz watched in horror as ship after ship in his fleet lost power and weapons capability without a single casualty. "Impossible," he shouted. "How are they doing this? Where are these weapons in our intelligence reports?" His tactical officer stared at readings in disbelief. "General, they're using some form of targeted dimensional manipulation. They're not destroying our ships. They're surgically disabling them." In near-Earth space, Admiral Wilson monitored the situation. Phase 1 complete. Begin Phase 2. Throughout Council space, hidden human installations activated simultaneously. These weren't weapons, but rather specialized transmission systems, planted decades ago by humans posing as traders, tourists, and diplomatic staff. On thousands of worlds, the truth about the Council's plans for Earth appeared on communication networks. Not just the evidence Jack had discovered, but complete operational plans, names of those responsible, and the long history of the Council's exploitation of younger species. At the Council headquarters, chaos reigned as representatives demanded explanations from the High Councilors. "You planned the same for my world," accused the representative from Tellus, a relatively new council member. "These documents show we were next after Earth." Similar accusations flew across the chamber as centuries of secrets unraveled in minutes. Back at Proxima Colony, over 200 Council ships now drifted powerless. Not a single human vessel had been lost. Not one human life had been taken. Governor Davis opened a communication channel to the disabled Council fleet. "General Kraz, your attack has failed. Your ships are disabled, but your life support systems remain functional. We will provide emergency transport for your crews if needed." On the Defiance, Admiral Wilson received an urgent message from one of his captains. "Admiral, we're detecting another jump signature, much larger than the first wave." Wilson nodded grimly. "The main Council fleet. They're committing everything." Near Jupiter, the space seemed to ripple as the primary Council armada emerged. Over 500 capital ships, led by the massive dreadnought Eternal Dominion. High Councilor Drex himself commanded this fleet, determined to crush the human rebellion once and for all. "The humans have some new technology," he addressed his fleet commanders. "But they cannot stand against our combined might. All ships, prepare for final approach to Earth." Before the order could be carried out, Admiral Wilson gave a simple command: "Activate the fold." Throughout the Sol system, hidden generators powered up. The technology had been Earth's most closely guarded secret, the ability to create a controlled dimensional pocket around an entire star system. Space itself seemed to bend around the Council fleet. The stars shifted position. Earth and its orbital defenses simply vanished from their sensors. "What's happening?" demanded Councilor Drex. "Where did they go?" His science officer worked frantically at her station. "Counselor, we haven't moved." "They have. They've somehow folded their entire system into a dimensional pocket. We're now effectively in a different reality from Earth." "That's impossible. No species has mastered system-wide dimensional manipulation." A communication channel opened on the Eternal Dominion's main display. Admiral Wilson's face appeared, calm and resolved. "High Councilor Drex, as you can see, your weapons cannot reach us. We exist slightly out of phase with your reality at this moment, but our weapons can still reach you." To demonstrate, a small human vessel no larger than a shuttle appeared near the Eternal Dominion. It fired a single pulse that passed through the dreadnought's shields as if they didn't exist, precisely disabling its main power core. The mighty flagship of the Council fleet went dark, emergency systems barely maintaining life support. "This is our final warning," Admiral Wilson continued. "We have shown restraint. We have taken no lives despite your unprovoked attack. But our patience has limits." Throughout Council space, more and more species were breaking ranks, declaring neutrality or even offering alliance with Earth after seeing the evidence of the High Council's plans. On a dozen worlds, revolutions began as populations learned how their leaders had conspired with the Council against their interests. The galactic order of thousands of years was collapsing in a single day. Admiral Wilson's voice carried across every Council communication channel. "The choice remains the same. Leave humanity alone, or face consequences beyond your comprehension. You have 1 hour to recall all military forces from human space and acknowledge our independence." As the ultimatum was delivered, the small human ship near the Eternal Dominion disappeared back into its dimensional fold, leaving the Council fleet floating powerless in the void, a perfect symbol of how quickly the balance of power had shifted in the galaxy. 1 month after the confrontation at Jupiter, representatives from 27 galactic species gathered in the Great Hall of Unity on Earth. The massive dome structure had been built in just 3 weeks using human dimensional folding technology, a deliberate demonstration of capabilities that were now being openly shared with allies. Jack Miller stood at the entrance, watching as the delegates arrived. Each species had broken from the Galactic Council to join what was being called the Stellar Cooperative. Some had done so out of fear after witnessing human power, others from genuine belief in a better system, and many because the evidence of the Council's planned betrayals against their own worlds had left them no choice. "Quite a change from the Council chambers," said Tom, now appointed as Jack's deputy ambassador. Jack nodded. "The difference is that everyone here chose to come. No one was coerced." That wasn't entirely true. The human demonstration of power had certainly influenced decisions, but Earth had been careful to extend genuine friendship along with that show of strength. Inside the hall, Admiral Wilson was speaking with Lisa, whose species had been among the first to formally align with Earth. "The Thran delegation has finally arrived," Lisa informed him. "That makes all invited parties present." "And the Council?" Wilson asked. "Fractured beyond repair," Lisa replied. After the evidence was released, over half their member species either declared independence or demanded reform. The High Councilors have all resigned or been removed. The elder races have withdrawn to their core systems. Wilson nodded, satisfied but not triumphant. "We never wanted to destroy them, just to ensure our own survival." President Chen entered the hall, and all conversations quieted. She took her position at the central podium, surveying the gathered representatives. "Friends, allies, and fellow survivors of Council manipulation," she began. "1 month ago, humanity stood alone against a threat centuries in the making. Today, we stand together to build something better." The display behind her activated, showing a new map of the galaxy with territories clearly marked in different colors. The old Council believed in hierarchy and control. They classified species as mature or developing, using that classification to justify exploitation. Our cooperative recognizes the unique contributions of all members, regardless of technological development. Dr. Gray stepped forward, activating a holographic display showing technical schematics. "As a sign of our commitment to this principle, Earth is sharing key technologies with all cooperative members. Defensive systems first, to ensure each world's security, followed by medical, environmental, and transportation advances." Jack watched the delegates' reactions. There was still caution, still some fear of these humans who had humbled the mighty Council without firing a killing shot. But there was also hope, something many species hadn't felt in centuries under the Council's rule. At the back of the hall, a door opened quietly. Elder Counselor Nexus entered, his ancient form moving slowly down the center aisle. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to this unexpected visitor. President Chen showed no surprise. "Elder Nexus, you honor us with your presence." The ancient being inclined his head slightly. I come not as a council representative, but as an observer. What happens here will shape the galaxy for millennia to come." He moved to a viewing area, his deep eyes studying the proceedings with the perspective of one who had seen civilizations rise and fall dozens of times. The meeting continued for hours as the framework for the new cooperative took shape. Unlike the hierarchical council, this organization would operate on principles of transparency, mutual defense, and technological sharing. Most revolutionary was the requirement that all diplomatic agreements be shared with the species' general population. No more secret deals made by leaders without their people's knowledge. As the session ended for the day, Jack approached Elder Nexus, who stood staring at a large viewport overlooking Earth's night side, the lights of cities gleaming below. "Elder Nexus, may I ask why you really came?" Jack asked directly. The ancient being turned slowly. "In my 17 galactic cycles of life, I have seen this pattern before. A young species rises, discovers betrayal, and responds with force. Usually, they then become the very thing they fought against. And you came to see if humans would follow that path." "Yes." The Elder's eyes seemed to look through Jack rather than at him. "Your species concerns many of the ancient races, not because of what you did, but because of how you did it. How we did it. You had the power to destroy the Council completely, to eliminate those who plotted against you. Yet you disabled rather than destroyed. You revealed truth rather than impose your will. This is unusual." Jack considered his words carefully. "Our history is filled with examples of what happens when power is used for vengeance rather than justice. We didn't want to repeat those mistakes on a galactic scale." Elder Nexus made a sound that might have been a laugh. "So young, yet you speak with the wisdom that many of my kind have forgotten." He gestured toward the bustling hall. "This cooperative of yours, it will face challenges. Some members join out of fear, others from opportunism." "We know," Jack acknowledged. "Building trust takes time, but it has to start somewhere." In another part of the hall, Admiral Wilson and Dr. Gray stood together, watching Earth's rotation from a different viewport. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Dr. Gray asked quietly. "Revealing all our technologies at once could have consequences we haven't foreseen." Wilson's expression remained thoughtful. "We kept secrets because we feared betrayal. Now we need to build something based on openness." He paused. "Besides, we haven't revealed everything." Dr. Gray raised an eyebrow. "You mean Project Sentinel?" "Some insurance policies are worth maintaining," Wilson replied. "At least until this new arrangement proves itself." The next morning, the formal signing of the Stellar Cooperative Charter began. Each species representative approached the central table to add their signature or equivalent mark to the document. When all had signed, President Chen addressed the assembly once more. "Today marks not an ending but a beginning. The principles we establish here will be tested. There will be disagreements, challenges, even threats from those who prefer the old ways. But standing together, we can face whatever comes." As if on cue, an aide hurried to Admiral Wilson, whispering urgently in his ear. Wilson's expression darkened as he moved to join President Chen. "Madam President, we've detected multiple ships approaching from the direction of former Council space. They're not responding to communications." The room tensed as the information spread quickly among the delegates. Was this to be the first test of the new alliance? President Chen remained calm. "What species?" "Unknown," Wilson replied. "The configuration doesn't match any in our database." Elder Nexus stepped forward, his ancient eyes suddenly alert. "They have come sooner than expected." "You know who they are?" Jack asked. "They exist beyond the Council's chartered space. We encountered them once, millennia ago, and established a non-interference pact." The Elder's voice carried a rare note of concern. "They monitor the galaxy for shifts in power. Your confrontation with the Council would have drawn their attention." President Chen addressed the now anxious delegates. "It seems our cooperative faces its first challenge sooner than expected. But unlike the old Council, we will face it together with honesty and unity." Jack looked around the room at the diverse species who had, just a month ago, been part of a system planning humanity's downfall. Now they stood as allies, brought together by human determination and restraint. "This is the true test," Tom said quietly beside him. "Not whether we could defeat the Council, but whether we can build something better in its place." As the delegates moved to emergency sessions to address the approaching unknown ships, Jack found himself standing next to Elder Nexus once more. "You were right to warn your people as you did," the ancient being said unexpectedly. "And they were right to prepare rather than trust blindly." He turned his ancient eyes to Jack. "Perhaps humans truly are different. The coming days will tell." Jack nodded, watching as human and alien representatives worked together with newfound purpose. Whatever comes next, we face it as equals. The galaxy had changed forever, not through destruction, but through humanity's final warning and the new beginning it had created.